Halo didn't die because of one bad game. It died because the people making it forgot what made it Halo. And I don't mean that in a vague, nostalgic way. I mean they literally didn't understand why the original games worked. They saw Call of Duty selling millions every year, they saw Fortnite making absurd money, they saw Apex Legends player counts, and they just thought, we should do that too. But that was never the point of Halo. And when you spend 10 years chasing whatever's popular instead of understanding what you actually are, you lose the thing that made people care about you in the first place. Halo worked because everyone played by the same rules. You spawned with an assault rifle and a pistol and 2 grenades, and that was it. If you wanted the rocket launcher, you had to go get it off the map, and if you wanted the sniper, you needed to control that area and know when it was going to respawn. There were no loadouts where you could pick your favorite weapons, no perks that gave you special abilities, no bullshit. Just you and the other guy, and whoever played better won the fight. And that's what made it work. Every time you died, it was because you messed up, and every time you got a kill, you actually earned it. You couldn't blame the game for giving someone else better weapons or some advantage you didn't have. You just had to get better at reading the map and learning the spawns and timing the power weapons and playing with your team. And this created this incredible feedback loop where you could actually feel yourself improving. You'd learn that the rockets spawn every 2 minutes, so you'd start timing them in your head. You'd figure out the best routes around the map and where people usually pushed from. You'd get better at landing grenades and understanding shield break timings and coordinating pushes with your teammates. Halo 2 perfected this, and Halo 3 made it even better, and by 2007 Halo basically was Xbox Live. Not because it was copying other games, but because it had such a clear identity that other games started copying it. But then Bungie left, and 343 took over. And that's when everything started falling apart. Halo 4 came out in 2012, and immediately something felt wrong. You had loadouts now where you could pick your starting weapons and abilities, and you had instant respawn where you'd die and be back in the fight 3 seconds later. Power weapons weren't placed on the map anymore. They were random drops that fell from the sky when you got enough kills, and sprint was just default for everyone all the time. And look, these aren't bad ideas in Call of Duty. Call of Duty is built around fast, chaotic gunfights where you're constantly dying and respawning, and that's the whole point. But Halo never worked like that. Halo's slower kill times meant fights were actually battles where you could turn around a gunfight even if someone shot you first. And map control mattered because if your team had the good positions and the power weapons, you earned that advantage by playing better. But with loadouts and instant respawn, none of that mattered anymore. You'd kill someone and they'd spawn right behind you 3 seconds later with completely different weapons than before, and power weapons weren't things you fought over. The game just randomly gave them to you for getting kills. There was no flow to matches anymore, no rhythm, nothing to actually master, and you could feel it immediately when you played. Matches just felt random. You'd be fighting someone and win the gunfight, and before you could even heal your shields, their teammate would spawn right next to them and kill you. Map control didn't matter because spawns were so chaotic that controlling an area meant nothing. The player count dropped off immediately. Within months, Halo 4 fell behind Black Ops 2 on the Xbox Live charts. And for a franchise that owned that list for basically a decade, that was a disaster. People weren't just leaving because they were mad about change. They were leaving because the game didn't feel like Halo anymore. But 343 just kept going in the same direction. Halo 5 came out in 2015, and it looked like 343 learned something. Loadouts were gone, and arena mode had equal starts again, and weapons were back on the map. The competitive community thought, okay, maybe they actually get it now. But then you actually played the game and realized they just traded one set of problems for a completely different set. You had all the enhanced mobility stuff now, where sprint and thrust and slide and clamber and ground pound and Spartan charge were just everywhere, and maps were designed around everyone moving at maximum speed all the time. So if you weren't constantly boosting around the maps, just felt stretched out and wrong, and the flow of Halo combat was just gone. And the maps had to accommodate all this mobility, which meant they were bigger and more vertical, and had all these extra routes, but that just made them feel diluted. The classic Halo map design where every sightline and position mattered, that was gone, because now there were just too many ways to move around. And then there was Warzone. This big mode where you could spend real money on rec packs to get better weapons and vehicles to use in matches. It was 343 trying to turn Halo into Destiny, into a live service game with microtransactions and loot. And some people liked Warzone, but it wasn't what Halo was supposed to be. Halo's whole identity was built around fairness and skill. Everyone starts equal, and the better player wins. But Warzone Massa was literally pay to win. The campaign didn't have split-screen co-op, which was a feature that had been in every Halo since 2001. The story brought Cortana back as a villain, which completely missed the point of her death in Halo 4. Halo 5 sold well at launch, but then the player base died within months again. By the time Infinite was announced, nobody knew what to expect. But 343 promised they were going back to the classic art style and removing all the enhanced mobility and focusing on Combat Evolved's sandbox philosophy. Basically, going back to what actually made Halo work. And when the multiplayer dropped in November 2021, it was actually good. The guns felt right, and the sandbox worked, and there was no thrust or ground pound. It felt like Halo for the first time in years. But then you saw everything else and realized they still didn't get it. There was no campaign co-op at launch, and no Forge, and barely any maps. The Battle Pass was so grindy that people revolted immediately, and you couldn't even pick your armor color without paying money. And the content just stopped. Season 1 was 6 months of nothing. Season 2 was another 6 months. By Season 3, most people had already quit. Infinite had the best foundation of any 343 game, and they completely blew it. But the bigger problem was that Infinite still had no idea what it wanted to be. If it was supposed to be a competitive shooter, then why was so much of the progression built around grinding battle passes and completing random weekly challenges? And if it was supposed to be a live service game, then where was all the content? And if it was supposed to be a social sandbox like Halo 3, then why did Forge take over a year? Infinite showed everything wrong with modern Halo. Good foundation, zero identity. So what actually went wrong? The problem is that Halo was built on design principles the modern gaming industry doesn't care about anymore. Everyone's starting with the same weapons and map control being the main strategy and skill actually mattering. These things don't help engagement metrics, and they don't sell microtransactions, and they don't make viral clips. They don't appeal to casual players who want to feel powerful in 15 minutes without learning anything. And when you're Microsoft spending hundreds of millions on a game, you can't just make a good arena shooter anymore. You need a live service platform designed around player retention and monetization and quarterly earnings reports. But Halo wasn't built for any of that. Halo was built for LAN parties and split-screen matches and learning maps over hundreds of hours and actually getting better. That doesn't fit the live service model, and it doesn't make shareholders happy. So instead of making the best version of what Halo actually was, 343 spent 10 years trying to turn it into whatever was popular. They chased Call of Duty with Halo 4, they chased Destiny with Halo 5, they chased Apex and Fortnite with Infinite. And every time they lost more of what made Halo special. Halo never recovered because it stopped being Halo. The magic wasn't Master Chief or the story. It was dropping into a match where your success depended entirely on how well you played, where the game wasn't giving you advantages, where getting better actually meant something. When you lose that, when you chase trends and add systems that kill the fairness and prioritize metrics over experience, you don't just lose players. You lose everything that made the thing special to begin with. Could Halo come back? Sure. But it would need something the industry rarely allows, the courage to just be what you are instead of chasing what's popular. Halo was untouchable because it knew exactly what it was. And it never recovered because it spent the next decade forgetting that.